Butternut squash. How much is that? Yeah, get a big one. How much is it? That's $9.99. It says 24 hours. 24-hour knockover. Looks like they changed their supplier. I actually like this because they come with the green, more green leaves. Did it always come in a bag? Or did you just grab another one?
I'm just generally sick of work and tired, so.
Probably wasn't a good idea to put this in my mouth.
Do you want me to open it before I disappear?
Oh, I'm just stuck to it. Yeah.
this way I can also give them phones.